pledge will be led by the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Johnson.
I'm here this morning just to address education. How do we know? Because the people have told us so. We represent the real. The ideal way to alleviate the shortages is by ensuring that children of all races and both genders receive the basic grounding in science and mathematics that will prepare them to pursue careers as scientists, engineers, and technologists. Is it not time, then, for America to grow morally? For those who fear to answer this question, I will answer it for them. The time is now.
Now more than ever, what happens in Washington impacts us here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Your Congresswoman, EBJ Johnson, will help you understand what goes on inside the federal government and share perspectives from today's leading policymakers and opinion leaders. And now, your Congresswoman, EBJ Johnson.
Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report. The topic of today's show is climate change. And my guest is Steve Cochran, Director of the National Climate Campaign at the Environmental Defense Fund. He has a long history in environmental policy. Prior to joining the Environmental Defense Fund, he worked at the Environmental Protection Agency, and prior to that, he worked for Louisiana's Buddy Roemer, both when he was here in Congress and when he became governor of Louisiana. Mr. Cochran is a graduate of Louisiana State University, and I want to welcome you to the show, and I'm delighted you took the time to come. There has been much discussion and some disagreements about climate change. It seems to me, because I have read quite a bit and I feel like I'm experiencing it, that it really is real. And but how do you convince yourself that climate change is upon us?
Well, I'm not a scientist, and so I kind of go through the same process that I think a lot of people do, is to try to really understand. Particularly today with the web and everything else, you can find opinions and things that look like science all over the place. And so, kind of sorting through that, I tend to look to people that I trust, as most people do, and then also look at the broad conclusions of scientific bodies. And one of the organizations that I think is worth paying attention to is the National Academy of Sciences here in the United States. And the National Academy has concluded now for quite some time that not only is the Earth warming, but that in fact we humans are adding the additional amount of warming that's causing this change and the changes in the weather patterns that we're seeing around the world. And not only is it the National Academy of Sciences, but frankly every single, without exception, credible scientific body in the country has concluded the same thing. The National Academy of Sciences literally around the world in every developed country have concluded the same thing. And there's a point at which, even though questions will always remain, and I actually think it's very important to ask those questions. That's how you get the best conclusions over time. But for people to suggest, and of course there are always some who will, that the climate isn't changing, that the Earth isn't warming, and that we're not causing it, is just really no longer defensible from a scientific perspective.
You know, it stands to reason that if we have almost tripled in population over the years, I'd say probably in the last 25 years or so, that more bodies are together, and that causes some heat. And the bodies of water, as well as in the Antarctica, there is some melting. So it's something causing that. You know, when ice starts to melt, you know that it's gotten in touch with some kind of heat or wind or something.
And it's not. It's beyond just a little bit of ice melting now. I mean, it's significant, and one of the challenges in the climate science is understanding what are called feedback patterns. For example, the more ice cover exists in the world, the more the heat that comes from the sun and is absorbed in the atmosphere, the more of it is reflected back out. It actually, the ice helps reflect the heat back out of here and help keep the temperature more stable. As that ice melts, which adds water to the ocean and increases sea levels, it also reduces the amount of reflective surface that helps keep the Earth cooler. So there's this cycle that begins once it starts melting, and it's melting significantly. They're projecting that ships will be able to cross all the way through the Arctic sometime in the next probably 20 years. That's a big change.
Yes. Well, the other thing, too, is as population increases, we tend to do away with more free growth to clear the space to build homes and that sort of thing.
That's
We
right.
have become more sensitive about holding on to trees, but we had a lot more growth in the past before we had the need for more space for dwellings and businesses. So just routine type of things that we do will influence that change.
I spent early in my career a number of years working on water pollution issues, and it was pretty easy to conclude pretty quickly that humans are a messy species. You know, we just are, and that's that's not a criticism. That's just something that we have to keep in mind as we make our decisions about how we're going to deal with it.
What part of the world is more affected by climate change?
This tends to be the case on just about every issue, and I'll sort of mingle geography with people here. As is always the case when change occurs, the people who are poorest at least able to adapt. It's not hard for the richest among us to be able to buy their way out of a particular problem. But in this case, you're talking about people who live around the world. Let's say populations in India or Bangladesh, where sea levels are coming up fast. Coastal plains are very low. Literally, millions of people live close to those coasts, and those people are too poor to adapt. And so the combination of the low-lying regions affected by climate change and by storms. I grew up around New Orleans. I have a particular sensitivity to Katrina and the contributions of warming to the storms that we're going to see increasing. But thinking about that in areas that are just simply too poor to adapt means all of the coastal areas around the world, in Africa, in India, in China, those are very significant. Island populations around the world, islands are literally disappearing in the South Pacific because the sea level is rising because of the expanding levels of the ocean. So when you move more into, say, this country or large urban populations around the world, if it's hotter, you need more air conditioning, or frankly, people die in the cities every year because it's too hot to be able to survive. So being able to have more air conditioning, things like that, those things cost money. And so people, again, who are least able to make the transitions quickly are the ones who are going to be most affected, and that's absolutely what we're seeing as a result of climate change.
We've seen some pretty obvious changes in our country, and obviously we have seen some outside this country with earthquakes and tsunamis, but we had to come to a real realization with Katrina, which has the capacity of happening again if we don't keep a watch on our levees and our safety portion of it, because I think it's going to take us a while to adjust to doing what we need to do to bring that climate into a predictable, what do you call it, gauging.
You want to get it in a balance. You don't want to have these sort of extreme circumstances that can develop, and weather is always unpredictable. What the scientists have concluded relative to climate change is that what we're going to see is more volatility, higher, more extremes. So it may not rain more, let's say in North Carolina, but when it rains, it's going to come in intense bursts of rain, which if you're a farmer, that's the worst kind of rain for you to get. It doesn't work either way. You get too much water and then you don't have any for a long time. We're going to see more and longer droughts, particularly in the Southwest. Texas is experiencing that right now.
Yes.
They're having sort of back-to-back